Let's go to London and speak to Ashish Prashar, a political strategist, also a human rights activist. He's also a former advisor to the Middle East Peace Envoy and Game Over Israel's campaign director. Ashish, thank you very much for your time. Of course, many people would say, well, why would you punish the Israeli public? Why would you punish an Israeli singer for what the military and its political leadership are doing?
So look, I always think about this. The reason people talk about cultural boycotts is because culture is the best way to normalize a country of peoples. Now, we're saying right now, by allowing Israel to participate in anything from Eurovision to football to the arts, that we're okay with apartheid, that we're okay with genocide. It's intrinsic that we make sure they are taken out of every cultural institution, from football to the arts to these big musical competitions. And the reality is we've done this before in history. If you think about it, after World War II, after the genocide, the Holocaust, did we let Germany back into every institution straight afterwards? Just use football as an example. They were not allowed back in and participate as a country, as a people, because they committed a crime against humanity for 6 years. Yugoslavia, when it collapsed in the Balkan Wars, we suspended several of those nations from all cultural things, from, again, football to Eurovision, including nations like Serbia, who committed a genocide against Bosnia. This isn't the first time. And why Israel gets the exception should be the biggest thing here right now. Look, we know even if the bombs and bullets stopped, and you just said it in your intro, the bombs and bullets haven't even stopped. There's been thousands of ceasefire violations, hundreds of Palestinians, lots of children have been killed since the ceasefire that has been declared. But even if they did stop, do we not hold a society that committed a crime against humanity, the ultimate crime, something that we all said would never happen again? Do we not hold them accountable so they actually foster real change?
Yeah, I mean, we know that Russian artists, Russian performers, Russian sports people, they have also been banned because of Russia's war of aggression on Ukraine. So if I'm to look at the other side of the coin, I would be wondering how the EBU has justified Israel's participation. Do we have any details of what happened? Was it a vote, or was it a unanimous decision by a limited number of people sitting on a board, or what?
I mean, this is the best thing about the story that's come out of this last couple of days. They were supposed to have a vote on Israel's participation. All the members were expecting it. Instead, they surprised the members with votes on rule changes, aligned to some of the scandal around Israel, how Israel finished second, which was like they weren't allowed to buy X amount of ads in another country to promote themselves. They voted those through, but they didn't hold the vote they promised the members. And 11 members refused to vote on any of the changes. Now, you said 4 or 5 have already stepped out, like Spain, one of the biggest participants, but also one of the biggest ratings and viewers and money producers to Eurovision, right? But now, you're looking at probably by the end of the weekend, there'll be 11 Western European nations that will step out. Now, look, I welcome this, even with all the scandal that everybody is making up in the West about this, right? I watched the BBC today where they're like, what values does it show the UK has if we don't support our allies? Well, it does show your values. It shows the United Kingdom, or at least its political establishment and the BBC, support the genocide, right? They're the same country, by the way, that were one of the last 2 countries to support apartheid, South Africa. So their track record in this sort of stuff is not very good. And the reason I welcome this, by the way, is this split in Europe. It's really important. The majority of the European public across the board, from the UK all the way through to other participants like Turkey and even frankly Australia that participates in Eurovision, support not having Israel there. Our governments and our institutions want them there. But this split shows there's even governments and institutions that don't want them in any of their competitions. And what this leads to is a domino effect. If 11 participants drop out of Eurovision, you know the competition is going to collapse. It's basically irrelevant at this point. Millions of viewers across the world will not be participating. And what that leads to, guess what? UEFA, coming up, has a draw for the Nations League. Israel will probably be drawn, and you're going to love this, against Slovenia, Ireland, and maybe even Bosnia, some of the participants who've already decided they'll boycott them in the Eurovision. And that means those games, probably in the Nations League in Europe, will probably not go ahead, and they will have to enforce a suspension at UEFA of Israel too.
Wow, it would be like Iran playing the USA at the Football World Cup, Ashish. But what we're talking about here are administrators making decisions that are going to affect hundreds of millions of people, whether they're physically in Europe or outside and watching the song contest. So when we move away from administrators, What can civil society do to place pressure on Israeli society to end the killings?
Well, look, isolation. It's always going to be isolation. Look, we have to.
But can you and I, Ashish, can you and I isolate Israel?
Yes. I mean, look, the reality is, like, yes, there is elements of what we can do. Like, look, civil society has also done this in the past. Remember, let's just talk about this for a second. Nuremberg was set up by the people before governments took it on. Civil society has done radically amazing things in the past to hold war criminals, genocidal states all accountable. And we can do that again in this moment, not just simply by boycotting goods. But let's just say this, right? I used this as an example the other day. People are frustrated that UEFA haven't made their decision in the football space, for example. It would take literally 1 week of Champions League games being boycotted on TV for UEFA to suspend Israel. Now, would the public do it? That's the question. Are we unified enough to do that collectively? And by the way, you wouldn't miss those games because UEFA wouldn't want the television revenue not to go, so they'll probably reschedule them. What the public can do right now is boycott Eurovision. The entire collective public commit to not watching it. It will bankrupt those broadcasters in the West that are supporting Israel and will further isolate them. These aren't actually dramatic acts. We're asking people to, in solidarity, not watch one event. Not watch one event. If that's all it takes to sanction and isolate Israel, is it not worth it? Is it not worth it to stop seeing images of kids being dismembered? That's what we're asking the public to do in this case, because a tournament and a competition like Eurovision could be the domino, could be the straw that breaks the camel's back and allows other institutions to act right after this is done.
I spoke to a teenager in the UK a few hours ago who's a massive Eurovision fan, and she said, this year I won't watch. Ashish, thank you so much indeed.